The older gentleman at the guard shack doesn't appear to be in a hurry. The world waits. Or at least our world waits as he shuffles past the caravan of cars, stopping to make friendly but slow conversation with everyone in our group, all through a drawl that perfectly welcomes us to the farmland lining Willows, California. There's probably some policy that keeps him from opening the gate a moment before 7 a.m. Or until every last one of us puts pen to the liability waiver hanging from his tattered clipboard. You know, legal stuff. Stuff we should have considered last night when we told everyone to show up no less than 30 minutes before the track opened. None of that matters right now. Guest tester Corey Alexander and I have got a bright blue Yamaha yzf-r1 and an even brighter 2017 Suzuki gsx-r1000 strapped down in the back of Cycle World's Nissan NV3500 van. Read Part 2 The Street Review here. Honda's new cbr1000rr and Aprilia's latest rsv4 are sitting at the ready in vans 2 and 3, and somewhere behind that is the overly anxious duo of Sean McDonald and guest tester Aaron Colton. We're all here, all anxious, all ready to throw legs over this latest crop of superbikes and put the proverbial question of who did it best to bed. Bob, or Billy, or Wayne, or whatever his name is, because honestly I'm too excited by what's to come to remember, is the only thing that stands between us and the answers. I bite my tongue and know the wait is almost over. Sean, the last guy to sign his name, packs his drone away, signs the waiver, and the gate opens. It's 2017 litter bike comparison time. At Thunderhill Raceway Park. Finally. Hosted at venues ranging from Utah Motorsports Campus, formerly Miller Motorsports Park, to Button Willow Raceway, our annual litter bike comparison test is meant to pit the most recently updated superbikes against the previous year's winner. In this case, that means we've brought along a standard yzf-r1, which toppled Kawasaki's latest generation ZX-10R last year, and the BMW S1000rr before that, when tested in M form. Then, there's the standard version gsx-r1000, cbr1000rr, and Aprilia rsv4rr. The first two bikes are heavily updated, while the rsv4rr gets a fine-tuned electronics package and updated brakes. All models tested here are equipped with ABS, when offered as an option, and pricing between the bikes is similar. The exception is the gsx-r1000 ABS, which comes in at $15,099. Compare that to the $16,699 Yamaha yzf-r1, $16,799 cbr1000rr ABS, and $16,999 Aprilia rsv4rr. We're using Thunderhill Raceway Park's 3-mile course, which can be combined with a newer 2-mile course to make for the longest permanent road course in the country. In 3-mile short track form, it features fast sweepers, rises, drops, hard braking, and some of the best trackside scenery this side of the Mississippi. Tire options were left open to the manufacturer, with Honda and Aprilia choosing Pirelli's Diablo Supercorsa SC race rubber, and Suzuki and Yamaha Bridgestone's Battlex R10 tires. After the track test, we load up and point transport rigs south toward LA, where after swapping to street rubber, we depart for a 350-mile street ride that pairs freeway and fast-paced backroads to tighter canyon roads that inch us closer to San Diego. Road racer and guest tester Corey Alexander gets swapped for the boss himself, Mark Hoyer, while Aaron Colton sticks around to chime in on braking performance. That means stoppies. Lots of them. Somewhere between the tire torching, we find a winner, a very fast, very potent, and very deserving winner that strikes a near-perfect balance in both worlds. Morning dew gives way to moderately warm asphalt by the time our continental breakfast settles, and by 9 a.m. it's time to up the pace from "you just need to look good in photos" to "let's actually see what these bikes can do." Leather suits start to stretch out, reference markers creep closer to reality, and our brains come up to speed. On the Aprilia or Yamaha, this is a lot to process through the morning fog, but on the Honda and Suzuki, things happen in a mellow enough manner that the first session seems like a proper warm-up. It's the first sign of how these bikes will set themselves apart. I do myself a favor by starting on the Suzuki. Updated with new engine, chassis, and electronics, this latest GSX-R is dramatically different than its predecessor and at the same time not. Ergonomics are the same. Comfortable. General sound and character are identical. And while noticeably reworked, the chassis gives you very recognizable levels of feel and feedback. By the second lap of the day, it's knee down in turn 2, a fast, sweeping left-hander that you can easily adjust your line through, assuming you have enough feel at the contact patch. On the Suzuki, you do. This is like hanging out with a friend you haven't seen in years but still feeling like you never spent a day apart. The best word to describe the Suzuki is user-friendly. The brakes don't have a strong initial bite like on the R1, but there's enough braking power to get all 155 horsepower measured on the Cycle World dyno slowed down in a controlled manner. Problem: the brakes can and will fade in a matter of 5 or 6 laps, with the pad material and rubber lines at the heart of this. Once that happens, the lever creeps closer to the bar, and you have to readjust your brake markers. Almost unanimously, this was the biggest complaint of any test rider. Although nipped and tucked so that it feels overall smaller and lighter, the 2017 gsx-r is not the lightest motorcycle of the group, an honor that goes to Honda cbr1000rr. Still, it is lighter than before, with easier tip and mannerisms than the R1 and a noticeably more agile feel than the rsv4 at full lean. Pitch the bike into the corner and you'll notice that front end feel has improved over the previous generation gsx-r thanks in part to new chassis dimensions, while off-corner acceleration is only stronger than the Honda. The Aprilia and Yamaha will leave the other two bikes feeling like playthings. Peak power feels electronically limited, a point that's driven home by the dyno graph, which shows the engine hitting an ECU-programmed wall at around 11,000 revolutions per minute. You'd have to have the most sensitive of extremities to feel the variable valve timing system come on, and with Suzuki saying the system kicks in at 10,000 revolutions per minute, that leaves you only about 1,000 revolutions per minute to make friends with it. The gsx-r's power curve is among the smoothest of the group, and the engine feels very usable as a whole. Not the most potent or best sounding, but usable. Suzuki's 10-level traction control system shines. So much so that in our timed laps, we opted to leave it on level 3 and turn the same systems on the R1 and rsv4 off. Technically, an electrical error forced us to keep the rsv4s off, even if that was the plan all along. This system feels like it works harder to maintain drive, whereas the others have strong enough cuts that you can feel them slowing you down at corner exits. No, the gsx-r's electronics package is not the most expansive, but part of the gsx-r's beauty is in its simplicity. In how it gives you so much through such an approachable and affordable package. At $15,099, this base model gsx-r is great, but we were often left wanting a quick shifter out of blip-down shifter and more, meaning we'd probably upgrade to the $17,199 R model. At that point, you have a great weapon but still something less aggressive than the R1 or rsv4. Honda might not have been able to bring the price of its CBR down to Suzuki levels, but the general approach to the category feels the same, Big Red having stuck proudly to the total control mantra that's been the fabric of every CBR it's designed. To accept these bikes is to buy into the belief that an easy bike to ride is a fast bike. To a racer, that's sometimes a tough concept to wrap your head around. You want power, and you want agility, and you want it all wrapped up in a package that makes mincemeat of any racetrack. The Honda is not fully that bike, and Corey Alexander, a former Moto America Superstock 1000 podium finisher, has problems coming to grips with it at first. The CBR is almost too friendly, with less bottom-end grunt than any other bike in the group and comparatively very little top-end power, our test bike producing just 149.6 horsepower at 10,540 revolutions per minute. The CBR is light though, our ABS-equipped model weighing in at just 436 pounds when topped off with a full tank of premium. That's nearly 10 pounds less than the Yamaha and 40 pounds less than the Aprilia. Yes, 40 pounds. You can feel the difference in each of the side-to-side transitions at Thunderhill. The other bikes take serious work in the quick direction change between turns 3 and 4, but the Honda flicks effortlessly onto its side. You could ride 10 extra laps and not feel nearly as exhausted as you would when you came in from your 6-lap stint on anything else in this group. To a lot of people, that's worth something more than an extra split second per lap. Part of the Honda's user-friendly nature stems from its lack of power, and we'll admit to nearly every test rider saying they were hoping for more, especially at corner exit. Here, the gsx-r has just a little bit more grunt, while the Aprilia and Yamaha open up a noticeable gap. The difference is so great that we'd actually grab one extra downshift at the entrance of turn 9, just to keep revs up and stand a fighting chance down the back straight. Other downsides: the on-off throttle transition is most aggressive on the Honda and takes time to get used to, even if the transition gets smoother at higher RPM. Electronics are admirable in terms of the operating window. Traction control won't cut power the second you look at the twist grip when set to level 1, but the actual cut can be overly aggressive, with power being fed in so slowly that you feel like you're in a staring contest with the tach. Yeah, I'll blink 10 times over again before the needle twitches. This is not the fast way around a racetrack. The quick shifter, without a blip downshift, tells a somewhat different story and is arguably one of our favorite systems on a production bike. Upshifts and downshifts are seamless, each gear change requiring less attention than what's needed on the rsv4's smooth but slightly more RPM-sensitive system. All the same, adjustments to the engine brake control system provide a nice step in performance, these systems suggesting Honda has got the right people behind the computer program, just that those guys might need to rethink their approach to traction control intervention. The other difference between the Honda and Suzuki is in the chassis, the CBR feeling less planted than the gsx-r through the middle of the corner. On faster laps, a marginal disconnect between front and rear prevent you from rolling the throttle on that split second earlier and carrying more corner speed. Sure-footedness breeds confidence, confidence breeds speed. That small difference, combined with the CBR's lack of power, typically led to lower trap speeds and slower lap times when compared to the rest of the group. In many ways, Honda has built a sharper, more advanced CBR than ever. If you'd never felt all 175 horsepower of an Aprilia rsv4, heard the bark of an R1, or felt how stable the gsx-r was, you'd absolutely love the bike, and how manageable it was over the course of a day at the track. The problem for the Honda is that the Aprilia and Yamaha do exist. They offer more performance for the same dollar, and, in a lot of cases, the Suzuki does too, for less. Stepping off the cbr1000rr or gsx-r1000 and onto the rsv4 requires a mental recalibration of sorts. You're entering what feels like a category within the litter bike category, a space where that last 5% of comfort gives way to another 10% of performance. Here, it's a mano-a-mano battle between the R1 and rsv4. The Aprilia is the more emotionally stirring bike, its Italian lines and V4 exhaust note putting hearts aflutter. With updated switches and a new TFT display, it shows small signs of maturing this year but still works on that same overarching theme of racetrack performance for the street. For someone like Aaron Colton, who had never ridden an rsv4 before, it's exciting. You couldn't wipe the smile from his face. And I couldn't blame him. It takes work to fully capitalize on the Aprilia's performance. At 474 pounds wet, it requires a noticeable amount more work to keep down at the heart of the corner and even more upper body strength in a side-to-side transition. The 10mm Larger front brake discs and Brembo M50 monoblock calipers on this latest version are like throwing an anchor over your shoulder and are the overall best balance between stopping power and feel. Still, 40 pounds is 40 pounds, and you're going to feel that on a tighter racetrack, over the course of a track day or race weekend. The Aprilia's chassis is rock solid at corner entry, with great stability and enough feedback to trail brake into a corner with absolute confidence. Mechanical grip is impressive, and you never tire of opening the V4 up. With 175.2 horsepower at 13,300 revolutions per minute, this is the cut-and-dry winner in terms of power. Where the Aprilia struggles is in putting that power to the ground once grip starts to go away. The Aprilia traction control ATC system is updated and the bike uses a repositioned inertial measurement unit to more accurately detect the dynamic conditions of the bike, but cuts are inconsistent and tough to wrap your head around. Where a bike like the Yamaha or Suzuki shines is that its systems step in at the same time and in the same manner, lap after lap. Assuming you don't do anything different, you know what to expect. This system is different. In some cases it will cut power in an overly aggressive fluttering manner, as if the bike is misfiring, and in others, one solid cut. Yeah, I'll swear you were doing the same thing on the next lap, and yet the system responds differently. Trust gone. The Yamaha does a better job of blending performance with user-friendliness. Its chassis feels stiffer than the Suzuki's or Honda's, but load it properly and it'll take you around the racetrack faster. In my first session on the bike, after getting off the Suzuki, I tried wheeling over the rise out of turn 1 and into turn 2, but the front end snapped from side to side the second I put it down, a reminder that this one's just a little bit more on edge. The brakes have that same trait. There's power, lots of it, but the initial bite is extremely aggressive and requires attention. For a racer like Corey, it was the exact feel he wanted, while for a stunt rider like Aaron, who wants power to be fed in slowly, it was too much. In reality, it's just a different feel than the rest. Each system has their own way of delivering braking power, and you'd probably get used to each system in a matter of a few track days. The electronic rider aid interventions are predictable and a nice safety net, though, admittedly, the introduction of newer systems has this one starting to feel more aggressive than it did in years past. As an example, the bike was cutting power out of turn 6, a left-hander that leads you into a series of increasingly fast kinks, and it wasn't until I turned wheelie control off that I could really get the drive I was looking for through here. Funny how frame of reference changes things. It was obvious that Yamaha's R1 was going to have its hands full this year. Suzuki and Honda didn't take the update to their respective platforms lightly, and Aprilia's rsv4 was always just a few tweaks away from closing the gap. Tweaks that Aprilia worked toward this year. The difference is that Suzuki and Honda have made great street bikes, and the Aprilia is still a motorcycle that lacks a small amount of connection between you and bike, in that last tenth of a second. The R1 is starting to show its age. Its wheelie control system fought us on occasion, and the chassis showed levels of aggression we hadn't realized until comparing it to something like the gsx-r. It is still a better motorcycle. Still one of those motorcycles that makes you feel like a better rider. Still one of those motorcycles that gives you the confidence to push harder, all through stellar feel and feedback and an engine that you will never tire of. This is a motorcycle that's as emotionally stirring as the Aprilia but with more performance than the Suzuki or Honda. It's simply the best bike in this space. The best base model litter bike money can buy. The wait for a new title contender continues. Read Part 2 The Street Review. Here our guest testers chime. Indiana 2013 AMA Super Sporties Champion, Moto America Superstock 1000 podium finisher. As a racer, I've spent a fair bit of time wondering where the competition's machinery differs from what I'm riding, where their bikes excel and lack. This here was my first opportunity to ride some of the bikes I've never ridden before but would race against, in one form or another, in Moto America. Excited? Yeah, you could say that. These are all showroom stock models, but bikes have become so good that even in stock trim it's amazing how far you can push your luck. The R1, for example, feels amazingly well-rounded with aggressive brakes, a super smooth power delivery, and well-functioning electronics. With just a few chassis adjustments, I felt extremely comfortable. The Aprilia drew me in with its thunderous roar, race-inspired feel, and endless gobs of power. Meanwhile, the cbr1000rr provided seamless electronic intervention hold for an overzealous abs that led to a few pucker moments when braking power was limited for milliseconds at a time. I was unimpressed with its peak power, though it was a well-finished and effortless to-ride package. The gsx-r1000, the bike I was most curious to ride, did everything well and felt much like its predecessor, almost in too many ways. The traction control worked well, but fading front brakes reminded me of my old gsx-r600, which had the same issue. If I had to take any bike to my next track day, I'd be the R1. If I happened to be bailing on a budget, which I usually am, I'd take the gsx-r and spend the money saved on some aftermarket goodies like a kickshifter, exhaust, and flash tune to get even more from the package. Then maybe a race pro street freestyle rider. It's no longer the era of the 2000s, where each manufacturer had a laundry list of improvements to make. All the manufacturers here have done their homework, and the final products are proof. There's not one bad apple in the bunch. That said, just because you did your homework doesn't mean you're Lisa Simpson. Over the past 14 years, I've ridden and competed in just about every type of motorcycle discipline there is to ride and know that even the smallest of missed details can affect the entire ride. When the R1 came out in 2015 it was without question the top of its class, and coming into this test I was doubting that it would be able to maintain that status. Although it did not have rocket ship power like the Aprilia, there was never a point where I found myself asking for more. Power delivery was sewing machine smooth and always right there. The electronics were iPhone simple, and it was as if your thoughts alone could turn the motorcycle. The only thing that one could balk at would be the comfort level on the street compared to the gsx-r1000 or the cbr1000rr. That said, the thought went away when the freeway was exited and the canyons were entered. The R1 wheelie blew me away once again. If I were to buy something for the days when my freestyle bike was parked and twisties were on the agenda, the R1 would be it. On the dyno power stations the Aprilia is the clear output king, and you feel every pony on road or track. The R1 splits the power difference between the fiery Italian, with noted dips in horsepower and torque between 5,500 and 8,000 rpm, and its Japanese counterparts. Honda and Suzuki limit peak output by closing ride-by-wire throttles on top. Thunderhill Raceway Park 3-mile loop V-Box Sport GPS data logger. Our V-Box Sport GPS data logger allows an in-depth analysis of each bike's quickest lap around the undulating 15-turn, 3-mile Thunderhill layout. The lap has been broken into 4 sectors, each of which highlights different aspects of a bike's performance envelope. Sector 1 begins at start-finish on the pit straight and includes peak speed. Turns 1 and 2 are among the fastest of the lap, with both rewarding a bike's deep trail braking ability and mid-corner grip under high chassis load. Our comparative point-to-point average speed through turn 2 showcases both factors. Sector 2 involves a series of tight, technical corners and rewards agility and tractability. Speed picks up again through Sector 3 with the fast turn 8 dogleg, placing particular emphasis on cornering stability at speed. Our final sector includes a look at apex speed through positive camber turn 10 and peak speed down the back chute. Turns 14 through 15 link together into a flat camber double apex that emphasizes grip and exit drive onto the main straight. Don Canet, Thunderhill Raceway Park 3-mile loop lap time data Aprilia rsv4 Honda cbr1000rr Suzuki gsx-r1000 Yamaha yzf-r1 lap time 1.5, 5.39, 1.56.81, 1.56.23, 1.55.25 split 123.38, 23.50, 23.57, 23.05 split 2, 28.67, 28.81, 28.50, 28.63 split 3, 24.77, 24.71, 24.28, 24.25 split 4, 39.55, 39.78, 39.87, 39.30 peak speed 1156.8, 151.2, 151.7, 156.2 peak speed 2142.0, 138.6, 139.3, 143.8 turn 2 average speed 71.9, 71.9, 72.1, 73.9 turn 10 apex speed 62.6, 60.5, 62.1, 64.4 read part 2 the street review here Aprilia rsv4 Honda cbr1000rr Suzuki gsx-r1000 ABS Yamaha yzf-r1 $16,999 $16,799 $15,099 $16,699 24 Mo Unlimited Me 12 Mo Unlimited Me 12 Mo Unlimited Me 12 Mo Unlimited Me Liquid Gold 4-stroke V4 Liquid Gold 4-stroke inline 4 Liquid Gold 4-stroke inline 4 Liquid Gold 4-stroke inline 4 78.0 by 52.3 mm 76.0 by 50.0 mm 76.0 by 55.1 mm 79.0 by 50.9 mm 1000 cc 998 cc 1000 cc 998 cc 13.6 113.0 113.2 113.01 DOHC 4 valves per cylinder shim adjustment 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 12,427 miles 16,000 miles 14,500 miles 24,000 miles 448 mm throttle bodies 448 mm throttle bodies 446 mm throttle bodies 445 mm throttle bodies 450 W 420 W 420 W 368 W 443 pound 409 pound 426 pound 415 pound 474 pound 436 pound 452 pound 443 pound 4.9 gallons, 4.3 gallons, 4.2 gallons, 4.5 gallons, 55.3 in, 55.0 in, 56.0 in, 55.2 in, 26.5 degrees 4.1 in, 23.3 degrees 3.8 in, 23.3 degrees 3.7 in, 24.0 degrees 4.0 in, 33.2 in, 33.3 in, 33.2 in, 33.2 in, 884 pound. 796 pound, 860 pound, 853 pound, 410 pound, 360 pound, 408 pound, 410 pound, 4.7 in, 4.3 in, 4.7 in, 4.7 in, compression and rebound damping, spring preload 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 5.1 in, 5.4 in, 5.3 in, 4.7 in, compression and rebound damping, spring preload 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 12070ZR17 Pirelli Diablo Supercorsa SP12070ZR17 Bridgestone Badlex S21F12070ZR17 Bridgestone Badlex RS10F12070ZR17 Bridgestone Badlex RS10F20055ZR17 Pirelli Diablo Supercorsa SP9050ZR17 Bridgestone Badlex S21R19055ZR17 Bridgestone Badlex RS10R19055ZR17 Bridgestone Badlex RS10R 10.27 sec at 143.75 miles per hour 10.38 sec at 141.58 miles per hour 10.09 sec at 143.69 miles per hour 10.28 sec at 143.86 miles per hour 1.3 sec 1.3 sec 1.2 sec 1.3 sec 2.9 sec 2.9 sec 2.7 sec 2.9 sec 4.8 sec 5.0 sec 4.7 sec 4.8 sec 5.5 sec 5.8 sec 5.4 sec 5.6 sec 3.3 sec 3.4 sec 3.1 sec 3.1 sec 3.1 sec 2.7 sec 2.5 sec 3.1 sec 3830 33 mpg 4236 39 mpg 3734 35 mpg 3127 30 mpg 161 miles 168 miles 14 miles 135 miles 31 feet 33 feet 33 feet 31 feet 123 feet 129 feet 127 feet 124 feet